changes, playing against Charles Lomaistro. Lomaistro. I like that better. I like the sound of that better.
And he's playing a junk deck. It's essentially, well, I guess I'll run through. Yeah, Dark Confidant, Tarmogoyf, Knight of the Reliquary, Deathrite, Scavenging Ooze, Green Sun, Abrupt Decay. So yeah, we're just entering here into what I believe is game 3. So Brian Braun-Duin is on the play. And he's bot season. You see revealing Knight, Abrupt Decay,
Gaddock Teague,
and 4 lands.
Gaddock Teague doesn't seem like it does much. Looking over.
Teague was taken there. Yeah, Teague doesn't really answer too many spells from Brian Braun-Duin's hand.
One of BBD's win conditions is Jace the Mind Sculptor, so could be working towards that. He also has 2 Engineered Explosives as removal spells, essentially.
Yeah, and we saw the Wasteland on BBD's first land. The Wasteland's off the bottom of the screen. Both players developing mana bases at this point. Brian didn't take the Knight of the Reliquary, which makes me think he has an answer to it already in his hand. That card is probably the more threatening of the 2 creatures. And it appears he has an Abrupt Decay in his hand. So
that's a very good answer. He's going to fetch for an Underground Sea. So with the first Underground Sea wastelanded, BBD does not have counterspell mana up, so he's going to go on the offensive with Tarmogoyf. Charles plays a Caracas.
And Sylvan Library. Sylvan Library is going to be very effective in this matchup. So Brian may have to spend his Abrupt Decay may wish to spend his Abrupt Decay on the library instead of on...
Sure, and he may wish to do that because it's an enchantment.
Yeah,
it's
so
going to grow the
rare
Tarmogoyf.
chance to get an enchantment into the graveyard, it's pretty good too here.
Yeah, pull that graveyard in. Oh yeah, and that would be an instant too, so Abrupt Decay.
Yeah, and there we go. It's going to be abruptly decayed. So Tarmogoyf now a 5/6. An instant sorcery land creature enchantment. And that'll... BBD going on the offensive now. Not typically plays Bug Finds itself, but probably doesn't mind being in this spot.
Lomaistro needs to do something about this Tarmogoyf. It's a 5/6, 3-turn clock on its own.
He makes a land drop, does not make a play, which that leads me to believe he has a Swords to Plowshares, as we know he has a Knight of the Reliquary in his hand. He's chosen not to cast it, so we're going to see. Yeah. Yep, swords on the Tarmogoyf. Despite the fact that Brian had a good offensive going, it's not the kind of spell he's going to fight over. That's not where Brian wants to choose his fights. I don't know if he has a counter spell. If he did, he probably wouldn't use it there regardless.
Misty Rainforest, crack.
And if Brian has a Jace here, that would be that's his ideal plan.
Yeah, that would be why you would crack on 4.
And Jace on an empty board with yourself at 22 is almost as good as almost as good as winning the same as winning the game in Legacy.
This card just so powerful.
Right. Lomaistro doesn't have a 1/1 removal. He plays 2 Maelstrom Pulses, which if he had 1 here, that could work. But without one of those, the Jace should be able to win the game on its own. At this point, what Brian has to do is look at their clock. They only have 6 minutes. I think that's now Brian's new opponent. Because Bug has trouble winning quickly. So I would say his biggest thing is he wants to make sure he can win this game as opposed to drawing it.
6 minutes on the clock we're seeing, but
Yeah.
they should have a time extension if they've been moved over to the video match. So are you saying that this is probably
usually when
their
we move
actual
over,
clock?
Lomaistro with the Maelstrom Pulse, that was one of his two of answer. Yeah, typically when we move them over, the on-screen clock is updated for time extensions, because there's almost always a time extension when you move someone onto camera.
All right, well, we'll operate under that assumption here.
Yeah. So another Maelstrom Pulse, Abrupt Decay, and Knight of the Reliquary. Brian's really in no danger of losing this game, especially his ability. If he can take Knight of the Reliquary, which he's going to do, I would say he's in danger of drawing it, but losing seems pretty hard. Okay, that was it. We just added in, if you notice the top screen, we just updated with the time extension that was given. So a little less dire of a situation. It is just under 13 minutes remaining in the round.
That should be enough for a healthy game here.
Yeah.
But Brian's still making sure to get the damage in where he can, attacking for 2 at the Mishra's Factory.
Right, remember Mishra's Factory cannot be Abrupt Decay. Abrupt Decay cannot hit
non-land. Lomaistro with the Deathrite Shaman. BBD is going to crack a fetch land and get an Underground Sea.
So we have Entep, mostly just to thin out the deck. Deathrite's one of the creatures he does have to answer fairly quickly. He does with Dark Blast in his hand. There was a thought there. He may have
gone for the
upkeep Dark Blast, Dredge Dark Blast on the Deathrite Shaman, which he opted, surprisingly to me, he opted not to do.
Right, may have just kind of habitually drawn his card.
Right, that play's not, this is the last time that play would work, because Deathrite will be able to exile instead.
Okay, but
he's going to go for Engineered Explosive, which is another fair thing to be doing here. He does not leave up Dark Blast. He said he's going to leave up Tropical Island. Last card is Dark Blast. The Caracas, he doesn't have to worry about the Caracas rebuying, say maybe rebuying some threat or protecting a threat, as Charles doesn't have any of his own legends. The Caracas is there purely as a defensive measure. Other than, the one Gaddock, but that's already in the
dead. Surgical Extraction here from Charles. He's going to drop to 10.
And it appears he is targeting Jace the Mind Sculptors. Certainly a thorn in Brian's side to have that extracted.
Yeah.
But I'm not, once again, especially on a deck that can't snap cast it, I'm not really convinced that Surgical needs to happen here. This game will now be more difficult for Braun-Duin, but not impossible. It wasn't really his main, it was one of his main methods to win.
Yeah, he's probably got more Tarmogoyfs.
He can still loam Mishra's Factories, and he can get an unanswered Liliana, and both of those should be as good as winning as well.
Yeah, but Liliana on her own.
Right, so would it have to be something like, Liliana just continually plussing and edicting while he beats up his opponent with Mishra's Factories. Something kind of convoluted like that. Liliana able to nab a Maelstrom Pulse. It's not going to nab the Abrupt Decay that's in his hand, though.
Right, so BBD knew that Lomaistro still had a Maelstrom Pulse and an Abrupt Decay. Goes for the Liliana to get rid of one of them and trade for the other. Discards his own Dark Blast, which does not care about because of Dredge.
And Liliana is decayed.
So now we've got empty hands, empty board. BBD has a Mishra's Factory. Draws a second one.
So that's going to push one extra point.
Oh, wow.
3, Lomaistro now down to 6. And just kidding.
Oh, wow.
So at this point, he may start dredging Dark Blast and attempt to find life from the loam so he can wasteland away the maze. So now, and he's going to activate 2 factories. They both can't be mazed. It's still a 3-turn clock.
Yep.
And actually, that will pump, so it's a 2-turn clock. The maze
does
nothing. My apologies. It's a really heads-up play by Brian. And Deathrite Shaman.
That's got to be it. Too much pressure from too many different angles.
Yeah, and there's a concession. Brian Braun-Duin 2 games to 1 defeats Charles Lomaistro.
Lomaistro couldn't find the right tune to win that one.